Susan Gardner here from Municipal World. We're at the 2019 Transforming Local Government Conference in Reno, Nevada. Joining me in our media center is Pam Davis. Pam is a member of the Alliance for Innovation Board of Directors who hosts this event. She works for the City of Boulder, Colorado, and she also heads up the organization CivicPRIDE, and we're so happy to have you join us, Pam.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about you before we talk about all those other things.
Yeah, so I like to call myself a local government evangelist. I am incredibly passionate about the career that I've chosen in local government. Been doing it for about 7 years now, and I've in that time worked for 5 different cities through various internships and then my first few jobs in the profession. I'm very passionate about helping to create more equitable and innovative communities. And when I'm not at work, I have many extracurriculars also connected to local government, but I'm also a newlywed.
Congratulations.
We just moved to Colorado and bought our first home. We got our first dog about a year ago, Mavis Davis. She's a yellow Labrador, and we're just really enjoying this new adventure.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you're a little bit of a mover and shaker in local government, I would say. You have a bit of a reputation for that. So what are the roots for that for you?
Yeah, so that's great. So it's funny how we reflect on our lives and sort of retroactively connect the dots of how we got to where we are, right? And so my first connection to local government ever was, I was about 5 years old, and my brownie troop led the Pledge of Allegiance at a City of Scottsdale, Arizona city council meeting. So that was my first time being in a city council meeting with no clue that I would be in hundreds and hundreds more throughout my life.
Fantastic.
The work we do at CivicPRIDE and my identity as a gay woman has a lot to do with my growth in local government. So I came out as a high school student, and in the U.S., there are clubs around the country called gay-straight alliances. And these are groups for high school students to organize and gather around those shared identities. And when I ran into some trouble starting that club in my high school, I actually started doing research into what protection was out there and discovered a law called the Equal Access Act. It's a U.S. federal policy related to public schools that receive federal funding having to allow extracurricular activities at those schools, and they can't discriminate based on what the nature of the club is. And so that was really a pivotal moment for me in all kinds of ways. We got this club started, and so that was very exciting at the time.
Yeah.
But it also showed to me that these institutions of government that we have that often feel far away or disconnected, on the flip side, here I was, this 16-year-old in Arizona with some friends, and because this law was on the books, we were able to do something that we wanted to do.
It can actually be something that makes a positive difference
Yes.
in people's lives if they know about
Yes.
how the system works
Yes.
and what it's intended to do.
Absolutely. So that, along with sort of other activities I was involved with at the time, really, it just struck me on how when we work together collectively, we all thrive. More than when we sort of isolate ourselves and don't work together. And so it was really that, and that sparked my interest in being involved in government more generally. And then as I grew through my education, I had initially sort of had a focus on federal issues and policy. And over time, what really stood out to me was that no matter how good your policy is, if you don't have the commitment and the resources to implement that policy and the infrastructure in place to ensure that the policy is being carried out equitably and effectively and efficiently, that it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so
It's just words.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as I started to learn about the world of local government, I really found this excellent balance for myself in the personal satisfaction of doing the work every day, balanced with knowing that I was impacting a community and knowing that everything from the basic infrastructure, the water, the streets, all the way to the opportunities to work on items like non-discrimination ordinances and, creating social programs for kids, and like the whole spectrum of issues that we work on really stood out to me as where I wanted to be.
And a lot of people don't realize that the scope of things that local government touches in people's lives.
Right.
But it's vast.
Yes,
It's vast.
absolutely. Morning, noon, and night. Yep.
So for folks who want to make a difference in their communities, in society, local government is a great place to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell us about your involvement with the Alliance for Innovation. When did you get involved? You're on the board now, so obviously you believe in their mission and what's happening here at the TLG conference, Transforming Local Government Conference.
Yeah, so the Alliance for Innovation is really the organization that has been with me from day one of my career. So I attended Arizona State University, where I received my master's in public administration. And ASU offers a fellowship called the Marvin Andrews Fellowship, named after a former city manager of Phoenix. And that program is a partnership between Arizona State University as well as the Alliance for Innovation. And so my first day of school was also my first day of my internship with the Alliance for Innovation. And so over the past about 7 years now, to be able to be with the organization first as an intern, then as working for a member city, then participating in our sort of next generation initiative called Next Era. There's a group of about 20 of us who are sort of earlier middle of our careers that are sort of helping to build the bench and the succession for the Alliance for Innovation. And then most recently, a couple years ago, was invited to join as a full-fledged board member. And so I've gotten the ins and outs of pretty much every role one could have in the Alliance for Innovation over that time. And it's just been an incredible resource, an incredible platform to learn about the greatest and latest things happening in local government. And then also it's become a family to me. I mean, I come to Transforming Local Government Conference and other events throughout the year that the Alliance hosts. And, I always joke when I'm packing for the trip that it's like the next family reunion, because the quality and caliber of our membership and folks who work in local government in general, it's hard not to just be completely enamored and starstruck every time I come to one of these.
Yeah. So this is our third time here. I'll tell you, this is our third time here, and we really feel that our mission is to help promote good local government and to share the best stories and the passion for the public service that comes out of local government. And I will tell you from our time here talking to folks, it's real. Like it's actually palpable. We can feel the energy and the commitment for the folks who come here to learn from each other and to collaborate. And for us as partners of the Alliance, we appreciate that too, because we know that collaboration and sharing is how we all get better and how local government gets better, and the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite things too about working in the public sector is everything we do is in the public eye, and therefore we can steal the best ideas from each other and without concern, and all of our successes and our failures help us all get better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about CivicPRIDE, because that's been around for a while. I didn't really hear about it until this year, and I think you have a little something to do with help propelling that forward too with some partners. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So CivicPRIDE, from my perspective, was born sort of between 2014 and 2015. So at the time, I was working for a community in rural Arizona, and at that point so I'd been in the profession for a few years at that point, and I had maybe crossed paths that I knew of at the time with 2 or 3 other professionals in the entire profession who were out and open and identified as being part of the LGBTQ community. And then the 100th anniversary ICMA magazine came out, and there was an article in that magazine written by a county administrator named Phil Smith-Haynes, essentially saying, where are all the gay people in local government? And he had done some interviews with some folks in California primarily around being out as city managers and county managers, and what that experience is like, and how sort of invisible within our own profession we've been. And so, I mean, that was like opening a chocolate bar when I saw that, because it was the first sort of glimmer of connection, and the first sort of, I mean, I'd been welcomed in the profession without a doubt, but it was sort of the first sign of like, oh, there's people like me here, and there's a place for me here. And
Yes.
so I reached out to him, and, you know, we just, our sort of friendship grew, and he had a couple others, Tony Winnie specifically from Vista, California as well. And so by 2015, which was the Seattle ICMA conference, they had organized a small gathering. There were maybe about 25 of us that met for dessert one evening at the conference, and it was sort of just a word of mouth. Let's meet, let's chat. We were celebrating the new presidency of Pat Martell at ICMA, who's a real trailblazer for us as well, and. So we just started a conversation. And so those first couple of years, it was just connecting with those of us who were looking for that connection, and meeting once a year. And ELGL, Engaging Local Government Leaders, came on board very early on in that journey. And ELGL has sort of served as the home and the platform for CivicPRIDE since our inception.
They've been really helpful in supporting that and making sure that it
Yeah.
has some visibility.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they've helped us acquire sponsorships so that we can host our events. They host our website currently. They've just been a really great friend to us, and their membership has really embraced and shown up for CivicPRIDE in a big way. About 3 years in, Phil and Tony said, we'd love to turn this over to you, like, will you take over this event, sort of thing.
Because leadership is hard and
yeah.
it's tiring after a while,
Yep,
right?
Yep, absolutely. And they're still very engaged with the work now. But so when I sort of started to think about what is this going to become, what's the natural evolution of this, what really struck me was to sort of have the organization come out of the closet a little bit.
Yeah.
So there was
Yeah.
nothing particularly secret, but we also weren't, it was word of mouth. It was sort of events that would happen on the side of a conference and that sort of thing. And so when I planned the following event, I reached out to ICMA and worked with ELGL, and we actually got ourselves into the conference program. We were sort of fully fledged, endorsed by ICMA at that point, and given space in the conference hotel to hold our event. And that really turned into a launch point that has really kind of caught fire ever since. And
ICMA, for anybody listening that doesn't know,
the International City County Management Association.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And so they were great. I mean, they didn't hesitate to say yes, but we had never asked before. And
Yeah.
so that's where, I think CivicPRIDE is as an organization is really truly almost a fairy tale for starting an LGBTQ group in any sort of setting. And so I'm really proud to say that, we haven't faced resistance of any kind. And yet the difference in 5 years from being completely invisible to now, brings a tear to my eye every year when,
Be careful, I've already cried once today in an interview, so.
There's at last year's conference, for example, CivicPRIDE participated in a couple of different events, and we had that moment of this young, bright grad student, like, ran up to the CivicPRIDE table and said, I found my people, this is just someone never met her in my life, and just that feeling of
I belong.
I've become the person that I needed.
Yes. Yeah.
And without even realizing
Yeah.
it. And it's just really special, and also just sort of mind-blowing to be able to do that.
It's amazing.
And how little effort it took to make such a significant impact in such a short amount of time.
And a significant impact just by having that visibility,
Yeah.
right, for people that that don't know where
Yep.
they belong, right?
Yeah, we have a
It's
line
amazing.
that I hear quite a bit through conferences, and I know Pat Martell, who's a former ICMA president, used this line when she became president, and it's, you cannot be what you cannot see. And so just this notion of just by stepping out and being visible, you can really change people's lives. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there's a There's a lot to be said for the people who don't belong to that community but want to support it and don't know how, don't have enough information about how to do it. I hope that, as a result of the stuff you're doing, that you're going to find a lot of that support too.
Yeah, absolutely. So and to that point, that's a great point. So CivicPRIDE is not just a movement for gay and trans folks. CivicPRIDE is a movement to recognize this special segment of our community, but also just to celebrate the advancement of different types of leaders. And when we have an event and we have 150 people show up, there's still probably very few of us who are actually in the room who are out and identify as being sort of LGBT or Q. And yet the power of all of our allies that come out and people who identify in all sorts of ways. Because the thing about diversity and inclusion work is that I believe it's very important to have these sort of segments of people and commonalities to be able to share those experiences. And yet all of us in one form or another have a part of our identity that maybe we've struggled with, or that we face challenges with, or can empathize, or we have family and friends that we know who have experienced discrimination and oppression in our lives. And so I think it's something that it doesn't take away from any group to celebrate a specific facet of our identity, and that's definitely a message that I really want to push. One of the areas that I am excited about exploring further with CivicPRIDE is how do we work better with our fellow affinity groups. So how do we work better with the National Forum for Black Public Administrators and the Local Government Hispanic Network and some of these incredible organizers? Because the other thing is, we all have multiple identities, right?
Absolutely.
And so working together on the issues that will raise all of us and will help us all lead our communities better is really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we attended your event, your reception the other night. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
It was kind of nice to see so many people there too. And my own perception of it is that there's a lot of negative in the world, right? Our experience and perception of the world can be very negative at times, but it's so wonderful when you can go to an event like that and that you are with people that you share the same values with, and I think that's part of the thing too, and the tie-in with local government and making a difference and being representative of the people that you serve also is a big piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hear quite often that our events are the favorite hour of the conference, whatever conference we're at. So up until this Transforming Local Government conference, we had only had events specifically at ICMA conferences. So to be able to branch out and reach new folks, but still have that same exact experience of people they feel different when they walk into a CivicPRIDE event, and I think part of it too is because of the nature of the work we do in local government, we have to take ourselves very seriously, and we have to be sort of very careful about considering all viewpoints and that sort of thing. And so to be able to have us gather together and without a huge agenda, without a heavy conversation, and just to say, hey, we're all different and let's celebrate that. Absolutely. And we all deserve to serve the community to the best of our ability, regardless of who we are. And so I just love hearing that, the energy that we bring, and we try to keep it light, we try to keep it fun. This isn't an anger-driven movement by any means. Phil and I at our last event lip-synced a bunch of songs and told the history of CivicPRIDE, wearing matching T-shirts and sequins, and so and you don't get to do that in a council meeting setting too. No. So it's also, how do we create more platforms across our profession for people to show their creative side and to bring a little bit more of their personal self to the work that they do? Yeah.
So Maria Church and I have been talking a lot about that, about culture and how municipal organizations and organizations generally need to find ways to let people be themselves, be their authentic selves, and that whole bring your whole self to work, and how much better it is for the organization and the person, how it transforms the culture, and how it can actually be a retention strategy for a local government
Yes.
or other organization, because people want to stay places where they feel they fit and they're welcome and they can be themselves.
Yeah, that concept was a game changer for me very early in my career. I had a kind of full-time fellowship after I graduated from grad school, and I probably spent the first about 7 or 8 months of that first big girl job, like walk into the meeting, get the work done, what do we need to do, sort of hesitant to make small talk, that sort of thing. And I connected with some really key people in the organization who sort of modeled for me what it looks like to bring that balance of your personal to the professional in a way that stays true to you and also is respectful of the work environment.
Right.
And I think over the last several years, I've tried to be very intentional about how do I show up authentically in different situations, and it can be a little scary at times. I mean,
Absolutely.
specifically around being gay, like we've come a long way in this country and a lot of places around the world, and yet, that now I'm newly married, so now it's wife, but that moment where it's, oh yes, my wife, or having that photo on my desk of my family or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You find fairly safe ways to test the boundaries a little, but get a feel for the culture around you. And there's nothing that I love better to start to share that and see that connection happen with someone else. And what I found is that I'm more effective and better at my job when I have those meaningful connections and meaningful relationships with the people that I work with. And it's a lot easier to deal with a highly contentious and stressful public policy issue when you also have sat down and had dinner with your boss before, or when you have that trust relationship with your budget manager, and so that you can go to them and admit a mistake or
Absolutely.
ask a tough question or challenge them on a decision, and that becomes okay when you have that rapport built up.
It creates a safe place to be you and to do your job in the best way you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's all kinds of fun ways I think that our personal selves end up being assets at work. So, I have a background as a musician, and so there have been
What do you
random
play?
opportunities. So I grew up playing the cello.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then kind of self-taught guitar, and my wife and I kind of randomly bought a drum set a couple years ago.
I'm a drummer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so, and I don't do it very seriously, but I love to sort of do like songwriting and things like
Yes.
that on the side.
Yeah.
And here and there have been these really random opportunities to bring like a creative skill to a project or a presentation.
Yes.
Or, my background going to summer camp is something I talk about a lot at work, and the skill set of being a camp counselor when you're 16 actually sort of fits the bill of the role of a city manager, right?
Yeah.
And the ability for, my mentee and so on, we talk a lot about that ability to recognize where your life experiences intersect with your professional experiences, and that muscle memory that you build even as a child.
That's
and
right.
being a leader on the soccer team or whatever else, that really translates into community building.
Absolutely. So talk about stickers. So I've got some great Civic Pride stickers here. So tell us about these.
Yeah, so these were actually just created for this event just about a week ago. So my wife, Leanne, she's an Air Force veteran, combat videographer, and graphic designer, and just all around creative. And so, and she is not affiliated with local government whatsoever, but has become a big fan of
She has to be,
of our
I'm
world.
gonna
Yeah,
say.
absolutely, absolutely.
There's not a choice there.
And so we were just chatting about we want to have something to sort of give away, and so she used her I literally sent her a text. I was at work, sent her a quick text like, hey, we should think about working on a logo or a brand that we can start to use more and more. And I think it was like 2 hours later, she sent me a JPEG of this design that she had just made. And so,
Awesome.
and so then we worked with Kirsten Wyatt over at ELGL to have these stickers made. And so we are, there's a group of about 7 of us who sort of serve as the steering committee for Civic Pride right now, and we've just completed our work around developing our own mission and sort of what are our key commitments as an organization moving forward based on the capacity that we have right now. And so we're hoping in the next month or so to sort of do a little bit of a refresh of our webpage that is part of elgl.org and roll out some fun graphics, and again, just to lighten that up and to show this message that we're here and we're here for everyone.
That's fantastic. Well, Pam Davis, I think you are a light in the local government world, so thank you for that, and thank you for coming in and sharing your story. It's great to have somebody speak honestly and openly about the challenges of life in local government, and it's great to see the action you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Susan Gardner for Municipal World. We share your stories.